This is the story of two towns. Neighbors in the midst of the Alaskan wilderness, born in the same world-famous event. One town lived and thrives to this day. The other has disappeared, almost completely returned to the land, except for a few telltale signs of its existence. Why did one live and the other die? And how does this railroad tie into the story? A railroad that goes down in history as one of the most daring and stunningly beautiful in all of Alaska. Escape the beaten path with us and explore the fascinating tale of Skagway, Dyea, and the railroad that decided their fate. To tell this story, we have to start at the very beginning. And to do that, we must zoom out. We are here in a wild corner of the planet. The western edge of North America is home to a string of mountain ranges that rise straight from the sea to form a wall between the ocean and the interior of the continent. Now let's head to the year 1897. Gold was found in Canada the year prior, and a stampede of fortune seekers now heads north. They need to get over the mountains, and lucky for them, one of North America's longest fjords cuts deep into the range and gets them oh so close to the other side, but not quite. The Chilkoots have a path over. It's a trade route they've held for generations. Their base at the start of the trail is named Dyea, which means to pack and clink it. They have another, lesser-used trail, one valley over, an area they call Skagway, the place with solid core trees. The gold rush arrives with explosive force, and two boomtowns burst into being at the start of both trails. This is Skagway, August 1897. Here it is 2 months later. Dyea is no different. Perhaps it's these images of a thriving, blossoming town that make it so interesting to visit Dyea today and see what time has done to the town that died. So we're currently walking down First Street. It's crazy to think that at one point this was a boom town and now it's a forest. It's amazing how Mama Nature takes back what was hers. At its height, Dyea stretched 5 blocks wide and 8 blocks long. Today, the paths through the old town site follow the layout of its original streets. It's almost hard to believe that this quiet, peaceful scene was the site of a frantic boomtown, but it was. When stampeders arrived in Dyea, they enter into a chaotic mess of noise, confusion, and construction. Town is alive and thriving, complete with hotels, saloons, grocery and hardware stores, dance halls, and theaters. There is one issue, though. The inlet is shallow, with a tidal range of over a mile. Ships can't get anywhere near town, so passengers and goods must be brought to shore in small boats at high tide. A wharf of nearly 2 miles has to be built to connect town to deeper water. That wharf started here. You can see how far it had to go to reach the sea. You may wonder then, why wasn't town built closer to the water's edge? And well, that's the crazy thing. It was. Rewind to the last ice age, and this region is dominated by ice. This valley is filled with a glacier over 4,000 feet thick. We can still see the signs of its impact. The peaks that rose above the ice remain jagged and raw, while the rock below is worn and polished smooth. All that ice was heavy, pushing Earth's crust downward. Now that it's all gone, the ground is rebounding, rising at a rate of about 0.75 inches per year. That means the ground has risen almost 8 feet since the time of the gold rush. So back then, the water was closer, and still a 2-mile wharf was needed. That glacial rebound is also why the town site is now forested, while it was more of a marshy meadow during the gold rush. As the land rises, the tidal zone moves farther away, and different plant communities can take root. Were it not for this lone facade standing eerily within the forest, one would truly never guess that all around us, an entire town buzzed, bursting at the seams. Some estimates put Dyea's population at 8,000 during its peak.
It's a little disappointing that there's not much left to see of this once booming town. At the same time, it's really cool to be able to walk the streets and use your own imagination to picture this place at its peak.
Of course, this begs the question, where did it all go?
So if you're like us and you're really curious, how can there be so few buildings left? I just learned something really interesting. Some of the buildings were moved from here to Skagway. A lot of them were demolished and all the lumber resold. And then some of them were actually used by homesteaders here in this area until they eventually collapsed and went back to the earth. So that's why we really don't see very much of the town left here.
Now, wouldn't it be interesting to see what Dyea might have looked like had it survived, and to witness the striking difference between the town that died and the one that lived? Today, a 7-mile ribbon of road links Dyea and Skagway. It hugs the mountainside, bringing into sharp focus just how quickly this terrain rises straight from the sea to the sky. Skagway, Alaska has a population of about 1,200 and an economy that centers on transshipment, public services, and tourism. Every year, over 1 million visitors pour off the cruise ships that dock right next to town. In contrast to Dyea, geography gifted Skagway with a deep-water port, and no 2-mile wharf was needed to reach it. Unlike many historic boomtowns, Skagway was never completely ravaged by fire, so it looks much like it did back then, with many buildings from the Gold Rush era still standing. The Arctic Brotherhood Hall was built in 1899. Perhaps the most photographed building in Skagway, no fewer than 8,000 pieces of driftwood decorate its facade. The Mascot, built in 1898, was one of 80 saloons in town. It is painted in its original colors, so it looks just about the same as it did back then. The Red Onion, another saloon, was constructed in 1898 and operated as a dance hall, saloon, and brothel. And the Moore Cabin is the oldest structure in Skagway, built in 1887, 10 years before the boom. Indeed, here in Skagway, many historic buildings still stand, though the businesses inside those structures have changed somewhat.
What you got in there?
This is a Klondike Doughboy, and it looks delicious. Nothing beats fried dough.
For lovers of history, Skagway is a treasure trove of stories. There is one story in particular that still withstands the test of time. It recounts the rise and demise of Skagway's most notorious and slippery character. Jefferson Soapy Smith was the undisputed mob boss of early Skagway. Boomtowns were magnets for both business folk and swindlers, all too eager to dig into miners' gold-dusted pockets. Soapy Smith was the worst of them, stationing his gang throughout town and grafting so much money that he built his own headquarters and openly declared his criminal lordship over town. Jeff Smith's parlor stands to this day. It was a saloon and then some, serving as the base for gang operations. The story goes that one night, Soapy's men swindled the wrong miner who made such a ruckus the community finally had enough. A meeting was called on the wharf, and local Frank Reed stood guard at its entrance. When Soapy came to storm the meeting, a gunfight ensued and both men were killed. They are both buried at the Gold Rush Cemetery at the edge of town. And to this day, you can see the regard with which the community holds both men. The grave of Jefferson Soapy Smith sits to the side, a simple wooden board above his head. No kind or loving words mark his grave. Frank Reed, on the other hand, holds a place of honor in the center of the graveyard. By far the largest monument in the cemetery, his headstone reads, "He gave his life for the honor of Skagway." A stone's throw away, Reed Falls bears his name, another thank you and nod to his memory. Here at Reed Falls, we see how quickly the flat, easy town sites of Skagway and Dyea transition to impassable and unforgiving mountainside. It's here we begin to understand that the answer to why one town lived and the other died has a whole lot to do with the trails. The Chilkoot Trail started in Dyea and still does to this day. It begins on the east bank of the Dyea River. Dyea sits along the west bank. Today, the Dyea River Bridge makes crossing a breeze. Of course, back then, it was a little more involved. Now, the important thing to understand is that Canadian authorities at the top of each pass required stampeders to have a year's worth of food and supplies with them. Otherwise, they were not permitted to continue into Canada. This meant that every single man and woman who went over the mountains had to haul about 1 ton of goods, which of course had to be split into separate loads. Where the trail followed the banks of the river, beasts of burden could help, but the moment the path shifted from lazy riverside to mountain trail, things changed a bit. We are about to experience just a tiny little taste of that.
Today we're going to hike just a little bit of the Chilkoot Trail. This trail holds deep significance and a lot of history, far predating the Klondike Gold Rush, in fact. So it's a little surreal to be here, to be honest.
The Chilkoot Trail stretches 33 miles from Dyea to the southern shores of Bennett Lake, British Columbia. Long before the gold rush, it was a key trade route for the Chilkoot Tlingit. The Tlingit, masters of coastal waterways, extended their reach inland through a network of trade routes, with the Chilkoot Trail a vital link between two worlds.
Can you imagine hiking this with a heavy bag full of supplies?
No. And the rain and snow? No way.
Even if we wanted to hike the whole Chilkoot Trail, we couldn't. It requires a permit, a passport, and a whole lot of preparation. As the gold rushers quickly learned, it is a journey that must be done in stages. The most treacherous part of the trail is a place called the Golden Stairs. It's the final push up to the summit, and here is where the most dramatic scenes of the Klondike Gold Rush are captured. No pack animal can handle this slope. Stampeders must carry their 1 ton of goods up the icy mountainside, one back-breaking load at a time. By early 1898, several tramways are in operation, but they're expensive, so the grueling conga line continues. Despite the pain of the final push, the Chilkoot Trail is shorter and kinder than the trail out of Skagway, so it's chosen by many. Then on April 3rd, 1898, tragedy strikes. An avalanche sweeps down the mountainsides and more than 60 lives are lost. It is such a traumatic event that many newcomers are strongly deterred from taking the Chilkoot route. The death toll was so high, a separate cemetery was hastily plotted to accommodate the deceased. Today, it's known as Slide Cemetery. We've spent the last 3 episodes tracing the journey of the Klondike Gold Rush, from Dawson City back to here, where it all began. Of all the monuments and ruins between here and Dawson, this might be the one that puts the most human face to the story. They came from so many places, all brought together in one remote corner of the planet, longing for the same thing. So that was the Chilkoot Trail. Now what about the trail out of Skagway? We are going to experience that route, and this time we will make it all the way to the summit. Because that trail was completely supplanted by the 3rd major player in this story. It's 1898, and both Skagway and Dyea are at their peak. It is also the age of the railroad. And with the immense flow of people and goods to the Klondike, there's an opportunity here. The problem is the terrain. The final push up to Chilkoot Pass is impossible for rail. There's simply no way. And the trail out of Skagway? Well, the climb up to White Pass has some serious challenges of its own, challenges that we are about to see with our own eyes.
Today, we are going on a historic railroad, the White Pass and Yukon Route. Ready for a train ride? Here we go.
Wow, this is nice. It's like a vintage car.
We could not have a better day for this trip. The sun is shining, we have blue sky, and the mountains look incredible.
The journey begins with an easy mosey along the Skagway River. It almost lures you into a false sense of security until the climb begins.
I've been acting like a wild man, sleeping like a child. You're so luminous and vibrant, I'm always in bloom for you. Always in bloom, always in bloom for you.
As we climb steadily, squeezed between sheer cliff on one side and precipitous drop on the other, we begin to understand with breathtaking clarity why this path was called Dead Horse Trail. Unlike the Chilkoot, pack animals could be brought up this route, but not a lot of them made it. Many chose this pass because White Pass is lower than Chilkoot Pass, and there is no final, grueling push like the Golden Stairs. But the treacherous nature of the trail gave this route its own infamy.
Always in bloom, always in bloom for
It really is remarkable that the railway pulled this off, but it did. It took 9 months for the rail to reach White Pass summit, and when you see scenes of the construction process, you'll understand why. By February 1899, the railway reached the summit of White Pass. By July, it reached Bennett Lake. And with that, a journey that once took stampeders days of brutal toil on foot was now a 3-hour scenic ride through the mountains.
always in bloom, always in bloom for
In 1901, an ambitious steel cantilever bridge was constructed to eliminate a switchback near the summit. At that time, it was the tallest cantilever bridge in the world. We reach the summit, and just like that, we are in Canada. The US-Canada border follows the crest of the Coast Mountains, which is also a subcontinental divide. The lakes just to our north eventually empty into the Yukon River and make the long journey to the Bering Sea. The waters of this lake, Summit Lake, have a much shorter journey, flowing south and soon entering the Gulf of Alaska. As we leave the summit, we suddenly see on our right a ghostly reminder of the early days of the gold rush, before the railway, when stampeders conquered White Pass on foot. There, across a small rocky gulch, snakes a remnant of the stampeders' trail. Narrow, barely wide enough for a person, not to mention a horse burdened with supplies. You can almost see them plodding slowly, step by weary step, almost at the summit. The White Pass and Yukon route was the first train to operate in Alaska, and it is designated an International Civil Engineering Landmark, an honor it shares with such wonders as the Eiffel Tower and the Statue of Liberty. As we travel through this magnificent landscape, it is time to reflect on perhaps the most influential force in this entire story, the Coast Mountains. Without these towering giants, the story of 2 towns, 2 trails, and 1 train would never have taken place. And so why did Skagway live and Dyea die? By now, you've surely put all the pieces together. Those who built the railway chose the White Pass route. They chose this route because Chilkoot Pass was simply too insurmountable an obstacle, and also because Skagway had a deep water port, allowing fluid coordination between the maritime world and the world of the rail. Many say the final nail in the coffin was the April 3rd slide. The tarnish of a deadly tragedy on top of a poor harbor and a blazingly fast route out of Skagway all came together to spell the town's doom. Dyea slowly faded into the background as Skagway grew, adapted, and became the town it is today. As our time here comes to a close, so does the story of these 2 towns. Now we prepare to leave Skagway, but not the way you probably imagined. And to be honest, not in the way that we imagined either. Join us for unexpected twist after unexpected twist next time on Art We There Yet.